All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Advocacy Days. Today is March 15, 2023, and we are here to talk about family and senior supports. My name is Tanika Aiden. I'm one of your co-hosts for today. I am an African-American woman. I have braids. They're wrapped up in a bun on my head today. I am wearing glasses and I have on a bright pink shirt and a black blazer. And with me, I have my co-host, Taylor. How are you this morning, Taylor?
I'm doing good, Tanika. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Taylor Crisp. I use she, her pronouns. I have brown hair and a ponytail, and I'm wearing just a black fleece jacket today. And we're ready to get things going. And make sure you select your preferred language on the interpretation globe icon at the bottom of your screen, Booth. And then we'll get started and have Tanika take it away.
All right. So first up today, welcome again. I also use she, her pronouns. I forgot to say that. So thank you for the reminder, Taylor. And first up today, we are going to be hearing from Darla Heltz from Peace Empowerment and Communities Enhanced. There's Darla. All right, Darla, you're up. Thank you for being here today.
Hi, thank you, everybody. So my name is Darla Helt, and I'm a mom, first and foremost. I have 3 children that I gave birth to, and I have 4 stepchildren. My 3 sons are 31 that I gave birth to are 31, 34, and 42. And my 31-year-old and my 34-year-old both experience intellectual and developmental disabilities. And I've been working in this field for over 30 years at this point in time. And I also have the pleasure of being the executive director of Peace Northwest. So Peace, People Empowered and Communities Enhanced, we just go by Peace Northwest, is a nonprofit in Southwest Washington, but we serve the whole state of Washington. And we're here to really try to help families get their needs met, because I have this theory, if our kids need it, and excuse the term kids, when I say kids, I think of my 42-year-old as a child. So if you're under 60, you're a child, you're a kid, right? Not a child, but you're a kid in my brain. So I mean no disrespect. So if my sons need something, no is not an answer, right? And so when we look at the services that families need, what is it that families and individuals need? First and foremost, I want families to have peace in their life, and I want individuals to have peace in their life. I want them to have a joyful, happy life that they choose, right? And how do we do that? We have all of these services and supports. And when I think about the services and supports that families and individuals need and use, I think of them like tools, right? They're tools in how we build the life that we want. There's no way DDA services or community services in and of themselves are going to give us a full and meaningful life, or going to give my sons a full and meaningful life. But we can use those tools and services to help create the life that they want, right? And I'm really cautious about programs, because my sons, while a program might be a tool that they can use, my son's life is not a program. Programs are stepping stones to help them build the life they need. And that's what I want for every individual who experiences intellectual and developmental disabilities. And all of that might sound really complicated. And so I'm going to say the first things families need is help navigating these crazy systems. I've been doing this for 30 some years, and I'm here to tell you, it's a full-time job staying up on all the changes and the challenges. You know, you've heard of the singer previously known as Prince, right? So I frequently think of the program previously known as whatever it is, because my brain is stuck in what it used to be, right? And so there are services out here that are free to families, free to self-advocates, to help them navigate these systems. The parent coalition programs are across the state, as well as the parent-to-parent programs. And I think you'll be hearing more on them later today. But either of those, you can find a list on the ARC of Washington's website. And any of those coordinators would be more than happy to help you navigate services on a state and a community level. One thing about DD case managers, and this didn't dawn on me for a while, is they're case resource managers. And what that means is they're managers that manage the resources of DDA. That's different than just being a case manager for our sons or daughters, right? That case manager for the son or daughter is really you. You're the one that's looking at what are the resources in the community, what are the resources financially, what are the resources through the state services, what might be the resources through the school services, right? And how do we pull all of that together? I'm here to tell you, we can do a huge amount of talking on this topic, and I have no idea how much time I have. But I will tell you, Joanne O'Neill is going to be talking to you today, and she is one of the most knowledgeable individuals in the state around these tools and services for individuals and for families. And so just knowing that you don't have to know everything, the only thing you really need to know is who do you contact and ask. And I'm really, those parent coalition coordinators and those parent-to-parent coordinators are just, they're going to be your best friends around the state. I did want to mention a couple things. So we did pass a bill last year that's going to remove, so if we're looking at services as tools, right? Then the services that DDA provides, there's a lot of great tools there, right? But you have to, currently there's an IQ score to qualify. And that is a huge barrier for a lot of individuals and families. And so we passed a bill last year, it's House Bill 1407, and starting in 2025, so a little over a year and a half from now, the IQ score will no longer be a requirement to get into DDA. And I'm going to try to explain something in a way that my odd brain works, and that's kind of in pictures. So when we need something, right? If I need groceries, or I need a new bath towel, or I need new shoes, I can go to Fred Meyer's and I can get all of those things, right? And that's kind of how DDA is. You can go to DDA and you can get respite, and you can get supported employment, and you can get supported living, and you can get different services and supports through DDA. But if you're not eligible for DDA, that doesn't mean that services and supports are not available to you. It just means you're going to have to go to multiple different locations to access them, right? And so I think that's really important for people to know. It's like, I can go to Fred Meyer's and get the eggs and get the bread and get the shoes all in one stop. That's like DDA. But I also could go to a shoe store, and I could go to a bakery, and I could go to a dairy store, right? And get the individual things. And so I think it's really important that we realize that these tools that are available to us, it's about what you need, not about who offers what, right? Because all of these supports and services are just tools to help you build the life of your dreams. And it's your life, and you get to dream it. And that's true for the individual who experiences intellectual and developmental disabilities, as well as for that family. What is that family vision? What is those family values? And how is it that you want that to play out, right? And looking at that and using those tools to help create those the life that you want. And parent coalitions and parent to parent, we are free services, and we're here to help you guys navigate these things. So I'm going to stop and I'm going to ask Tanika or Taylor how much time I have, so I don't just keep babbling.
You have 5 more minutes, Darla. You're good.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And I
Okay.
see you have a question from Tammy.
Okay, Tammy, what is your question?
Hi. I am a self-advocate as well. My question is, a lot of families are probably in dire need of help and don't know where to go. Do you go to the high school or schools and meet with those families to help them navigate? And second question is, I was in mainstream my whole education system. If you do go to the school, do you also look at the kids that are not in special ed, but in mainstream?
Excellent questions, Tammy. Thank you so much for asking them. So what we do is we do go into the schools and we help. I do training for teachers, but we also do transition training series for families and self-advocates that happen. We in Southwest Washington, and it's different all around the state, but most places in the state have some type of a transition program. Ours are in collaboration. It's a coordination with the schools, with WISE, with the county, and with Peace, and with PAVE. And we hold those meetings once a month, and they start in October and they go through April. And then we have a different topic each month. And in addition to that, we do other training evenings. So last night we hosted a training with Mary McDermott, and she did financial planning and estate planning for our families, which is a huge piece, because if we screw that up as parents, we're going to mess up your benefits when we're gone, right? And so it's really important that we figure out how to get those wills and estate plans set up appropriately, so that when I'm no longer here, my sons still have the supports they need and they're still able to access those services, right? So as a parent, I'm not only working on how do I help my sons live the life of their dreams today with the tools that are available, but I'm also planning on, after I die, how do I set things up so that my sons can still keep living the life of their dreams, right? So my job is today and tomorrow, right? And then as far as going into the schools, when we go into the schools, we typically are working with IEPs, or we're doing presentations to the teachers. They rarely don't let us in to speak with the students, but we work with individuals. I mean, when my kids were in school, huge inclusion fan. One child was fully included. One child was included based upon him driving the system. Whatever he wanted to be included in, he was included in. And if he wanted a timeout, he got a timeout. Timeout's the wrong term. A sensory break, right? He got to drive that. Not because he was in trouble, but just because he was needing a break from all the energy. So really, it's we try to connect with people in lots of different ways. I know in some places around the state, there's student first programs. We don't have that yet down here in Southwest Washington, but that's something that we're looking at starting, so that we can get to more of those individuals and really make sure that everybody has the information they need, and to help families know that our job is really to support the self-advocates in building the life that the self-advocates want, right? This is your dream. My job is to build my own life and to help my sons be the support system for my sons to build the life they want, right? That's kind of my vision. Are there other questions real quick before I?
Can I just add one more?
Okay,
Sorry.
no, it's great.
Also, I think it would be excellent if there's not already something out like this, but to have a self-advocate that had already went through the process and has been successful, and it would not only encourage the student, but it would also give the family hope that they can see, this can work.
Absolutely, Tammy. I think having self-advocates in those roles of leadership and role modeling is critical for everyone. I know as a child growing up, we had a couple self-advocates. I lived in a very rural community, and we had a couple self-advocates that were always coming over and borrowing tools from my family to go do side jobs for other people to raise money. So it never, from the time my son was born, I knew individuals with disabilities could work and have jobs and have meeting normal lives, right? And that's because that had been role modeled to me from early on, right? And I think it's really important that we allow you amazing leaders to step into those roles as role models and leaders to show those that are coming up behind you how great your life can be. So thank you, everybody. I will put my contact information in chat. If you have any questions or you want to reach out, please don't hesitate. Again, my name's Darla Helt, and it's Peace Northwest, PEACENW. And if you Google us, you can find our website. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Darla. So we're going to move on to our next speaker. Jennifer Brown isn't here yet, so we're going to move on to Jackie Estes, and she's a neurodivergent parent raising children of her own. So take it away, Jackie.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jackie, and I am an autistic adult. I was formally diagnosed in the year of 2019, right before the shutdown. I spent 4 years trying to get diagnosed on Medicaid. My youngest was born in 2012 and was diagnosed with autism, suspected intellectual disability, and being fully bilateral deaf. He is in the care of my mother-in-law right now because I cannot personally sign fast enough to communicate with him. I only sign at a preschool, early kindergarten level, and he is now currently in the 4th grade at an amazing DHH school, and I am teaching online. I, in 2016, also had a globally developmentally delayed daughter who is not currently diagnosed with autism, but is suspected of having a PDA profile. We struggle because of the combination of the autism and my physical disability on a day-to-day basis, and finding those programs that were talked about that DDA doesn't offer to people who currently don't meet the IQ qualification is really, really hard. Yeah, it was really hard growing up undiagnosed. I was very fortunate in school that I had a 504 accommodation for my diabetes. I was diagnosed at 11 with diabetes, and that is even harder to manage because of the autism, remembering to take my insulin, to test my blood sugar, to take my mental health meds for my bipolar disorder, to wash the dishes after I eat. That's a hard one in my house, washing dishes. Getting support for ADLs in Washington when you don't have that intellectual disability diagnosis, getting respite care is really hard. My daughter does not qualify as intellectually disabled, and the only respite care I can get for her is through the public school. Our home district is not a very great one, and we're very fortunate that because of my knowledge of the programs and my husband's job, we qualify as being homeless. So we are able to go to an outside school that has better resources than our home district. And that's not an option that all parents have, because I have to be homeless to get that option. I live full-time in an RV and travel from city to city a lot for work. I'm trained as a facility maintenance tech. I'm trained as a teacher. I'm trained as a home care aide. I've done the DVR rehabilitation 4 times now. I'm currently working as an online content creator, and I get absolutely zero income from it because education should be free. As you know, education in the US from 8 to 18 is free. That means all of our teachers, their income is coming from taxes and funds set aside by the government for special education. It's costly. When we were looking at a one-to-one para-educator for my daughter when she was in preschool because she was running away, it was $32,000 a year to pay for a one-to-one para-educator. And it was easier for me to move cities than for the school to pay for a para-educator, so that my daughter could go into a locked facility in the general education classroom instead of having somebody follow her in a big elementary school. There are resources that are available to our children change from year to year. My daughter's Medicaid benefits will change when she's 8. They changed when she was 3. The things that she's available for, the things available to her right now may not necessarily be available to her in 5th grade. They may not be available to her in 8th grade. They may not be available to her in 12th grade. even though they're available to her in first grade because of her Medicaid payment system and the fact that she is not intellectually disabled. And that is why this removal of the IQ qualification is so important for DDA and multi-comorbid people. I have 30 medical conditions. My daughter's formal diagnoses will eventually include dysgraphia, dyscalculia, dyslexia, ADHD, you know, autism, among many others that we don't know yet as she grows. How much time do I have?
I would say about a few more minutes. What do you think, Diana?
I think that was the bulk of what I wanted to say if the next presenter's ready,
Okay.
unless anybody has questions for me.
Yeah, does anybody have questions for Jackie or any final thoughts or comments? I think I might. I don't see. I mean, I see something in the chat that says from Justin that says they can relate as far as he's got an he's undiagnosed with autism as well, so he gets the diagnosis processes can be challenging. And then
yeah, I did see that pop up, and that's why I mentioned that I was undiagnosed in school.
Oh, Diana has her hand raised up.
Oh yeah.
Hi, Jackie. I'm so happy that you were able to come and, talk about what you go through as a mom, because more than people realize, there are so many moms out there and parents out there who have a developmental disability and who are raising kids with disabilities. And I know just as a neurotypical mom that it's hard. It's been hard enough raising my son with autism, but I can see that it's just so much more challenging. And I really appreciate you sharing your story with everyone.
Well, thank you. It has been very challenging, and I think that with the right supports that more autistic adults out there can have fulfilling lives.
Yep, that's true. Thank you,
Yes,
Jackie.
I agree. I think that DDA should focus on all disabilities.
Thank you, Jackie.
Yes, thank you
Like
for
we
so
have-
much.
Let's see, Cindy, was it Cindy? Yeah, Cindy put in the chat, timing is so important with DDA qualifications. Is there anything parents can be doing to prepare the application for DDA when IQ is eliminated as a qualifier, like getting a diagnosis or school evaluations?
I would say as a parent, I did not have the school write my daughter's IEP. I started homeschooling at 5 months old, teaching sign language. And by the time, so she, because of being born early, I was able to get her into birth to 3 program, just based on being born early. Being born before 36 weeks automatically for the first 8 years qualifies you under Medicaid as a developmentally disabled child. If you're born after 36 weeks, I was told that they will qualify parents who are low income or disabled under family history. So you can start getting supports earlier through the Birth to Free program if you have a family history, I was told. I don't know where that was written, but having that IFSP from an early age stating what their delays are. So my daughter was speech delayed, and I tracked those things in addition to her speech language pathologist. She struggles with writing, so I worked at home from age 1 until age 3, 5 minutes a day on writing, and I tracked that for them. Having that, when I was getting diagnosed, I didn't have any records, and that made it so that DDA automatically disqualified me. I knew that by the time my daughter, after having watched my son go through the school process, we learned with him that having those records are important.
Yes, that's really true. Records are so important. Thank you so much for doing this today, Jackie, and sharing so much of your life with our families and self-advocates that are out there today.
No, it's this. I struggled all through school. I'm a self-advocate and a private FRAPA teacher, which means that I teach largely for free. I have 2 biological children and I have 2 kinship children who they do not live with me, but I have care responsibilities for them, and teaching is a passion of mine, my special interest, if you will. So
Okay, well, we need to wrap up and go on to the next. We need to go on to the next speaker. We're running a little bit behind.
No problem.
Thank you so much for sharing, Jackie.
And the next speaker will be Ginger Kwan from Multicultural Families. I'm excited for her to speak and hear what she says. If you're ready, Ginger.
Yes, if I can share my screen, then that would be good. Can I do the screen share?
Yes, now you can.
Okay. Okay, let me do the screen share. Okay, can you guys see it?
I
Yep, you're
can.
good.
Okay, all right. So let me just do this. I want to make sure slideshow started from beginning. Okay, so that's bigger for us to see. Okay, so I was asked to talk about the multicultural village that we are planning to do, but that's related to the housing. So first of all, when we try to address the housing issue, really is thinking about what community needs. Open Doors for Multicultural Families has a strong focus on serving linguistically and culturally diverse individuals who have IDD and also their families. And so there's many of them, they are refugee immigrants or people of color, low income, as well as many of our DD family, similarly. And so when we try to do this community engagement, we approach to our council member and also Cooney Foundation, get some support, and that's give us the funding we needed. And the community engagement to understand the family's housing and related service needs, focusing on the parents and caregivers' needs talking about person who have disabilities needs, and also the few service providers also participate in our community engagement process. And we do two different ways of gathering information. One is through the survey that we translate the questionnaires that are created by the parents, by the person with disabilities, into a phone app, which I'm not really sure how it got done. That's what I told by my support person. So we text all the survey questions to the individuals online, not only through the phone, but also online with distribution to many people. And then we also do focus groups. But this today, what I'm presenting here, the PowerPoint slides, is only for the focus group. And for the, no, I'm sorry, it's only for the survey piece. For the focus group, oh, it comes back. Okay. So the focus group, for the survey wise, the total, there are 354 response that we received the respondents back. And you can see that here are all the different languages speaking by the families that we provide a survey to.
I'm sorry, Ginger, but you haven't advanced your slides.
Oh, I haven't?
No, you're still on the first page.
Oh, really?
You need to hit the from beginning again, Ginger. I don't think it took.
Oh, I'm sorry. How about this? Does it
Yeah,
work?
there you go. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you for telling me, because it shows on my two screen the same thing. So I don't know why. Okay. All right, here. Okay. So the survey, we got 354 responses back, and here are the language spoken by the, families of caregivers. And also there are 53 responses back from the adults with disabilities, and some of them are youth as well. And then 11 providers, but all the providers together, they serve more than 8,000, individuals who have people with disabilities. And so when we ask them questions, first of all, want to find out what is a household size. And in King County, the average household size is 2.45. However, you can see through our survey, the population we serve have more than 67%. It's higher than 2.45 household number. So that only means that currently a lot of housing developers, when they develop housing, they will only build 1 or 2 bedrooms. And for our community, we actually also need 3 bedroom and more. And then here, just the language of the people who responded, how many language group, and also the number of that. And I think this will be more interest for everybody here, is that in our survey, there are 71% of the people who filled out a survey has one person with disability live in the household. But there's like 18% have 2 people, or more than that, 3 or 4 or 5 people live in their households as well. So you can see that many of the families actually has more than 1 or 2 people living in their household have developmental disabilities. And then regarding to the income, I don't think that this is a surprise to anybody, because in our survey, 54% of the people who filled out a survey has less than $35,000 annual income. And so it's very important that if we are developing housing project, has to be, affordable for low income population. And that's what we were planning to do for that. And then we also ask people, does your housing current situation meet your household needs? And you can see that, only 16% says that completely, but like mostly 17%, but you can see that 42 plus 24% here are actually not meeting their needs. So that means wherever they live, if they raise a child or live with adults or somebody who has disabilities, or that themselves has a disability, live alone, their current housing situation are not meeting their needs. And so we can go to, I'm not going to focus on this. Let me see. So here we were asking, how often must you choose between paying for your housing and other needs? And I think this is related to, do you choose to pay for your medication? Or do you choose your money to pay for food because your income is not enough? So you can see that always that's 26%. That's pretty high for any household. Frequently or never, it's only 8%. But of course, then you can see that that's very comparable to how much is their income level. Let me see here. And it's about the people who are risk at losing their home wise, that 24% of them, is coming from this here, like less than 35% would be 58%. And then 40% of them with the income more, up to $70,000. This is a huge majority, like 98% of the people out of this 24%, people say that they are at risk of losing their home. That is really, really high. So the housing needs is absolutely great. Just by this survey that we can learn that. And we also ask people about what's their preference, because from the different cultural backgrounds and ethnic backgrounds, the preference of living with their family members or not is very different from, the mainstream thinking of if you are over age of 18, now you're adults, you will, likely you want to live all by yourself. But our survey actually shows that people who have disabilities and also prefer to live with their families are 45%, and prefer to live alone by themselves is 38%. And then they are also housemates or roommates arrangement, that's 6%. So this is just an indicator of we need more different options for people with disabilities to choose from where they want to live and how they want to live and who they want to live with. And of course, this is not surprising to see that parents and caregiver also have a higher rate of wanting to live with their children. So 85% here for the parents' perspective. So there's a housing. A lot of parents really want to live in a owner-occupied housing. They want to own their home. So this is their goal that also linked to some of the policy that we need to advocate for DD housing is home ownership. And only people who have home ownership can really have a stable housing in many ways. And so you can see that 70% of people hope that they can someday to own their own home. And here I think you will be a little bit appreciated is that we try to understand if people live with their families, what their needs will be different, in terms of daily living supports, right? For example, like grocery shopping and transportation, these are a high priority for people with disabilities. But for parents, number one is meal preparation, thinking about who's going to prepare the meal, and also personal care, those things, because as a caregiver, we do more on these things. So using these, surveying their needs for their daily activity living also help us to prepare what kind of reciprocal care or what kind of personal care are needed for the population if they live in this community we intended to create it. That give us an understanding also in terms of programming later on what we need to provide it to them. And here, we ask people about if we are going to build this community that is inclusive, not only for people with IDD, and you can live in this place with support that you needed, have easy access to different services or amenity. What will be the amenity that you preferred that is a shared space for you? And so again, the yellow part represent the people with disabilities, what they like, and versus what parents and caregivers is in blue color. So you can see the fitness is one of the priority for parents, and also accessible playground for children. That's also priority for a lot of parents. But versus for people with disabilities, interestingly, they want to have a community garden. I think that's something that they can learn, they can grow their own food, and also interact with natures, and also provide an opportunity for them to go out to do things physically as well. So these are their feedback to us. And then, one thing that in our qualities, in our focus group, we also talk about what are the things like in your neighborhood that you prefer, what's important to you. If we build this community, if you live in this community, what do you want to see? So these are their feedback, like easy access to grocery stores, food and restaurants, easily see that this is for people with disabilities. And then also they want to see neighbors are very friendly. And I think you can see the parents really worry about that. So 72% indicated that is so important to them. And then easy access to public transportation is also on the high list as well. And then some programming or activities for people with disabilities. I think parents think about respite care quite a lot. So anyhow, these are the neighborhood amenity that we see from the survey respondents told us what they needed. So we also asked them, if we create a community like that as an option of your housing choices, what would you be interested? And people with disabilities, only 4% says no, not at all, and slightly like 9%. So like almost 87% will be extremely interested or very interested or moderate. So there is a huge indicator they are interested in living in a intentional design community that has easy access to many different facility programmings and social opportunities, easy access to healthcare, to food, and public transportation. But for parents, not at all is 5%, extremely interested, 28%, and very interested here. In our qualitative data, we found out that some of the parents really worries about how safety, because in this survey, we didn't talk about safety feature, but for when we were doing the qualitative survey in the focus group, they told us safety is number one. So I can see that this could be something that they worry about, but they didn't say much. But overall, you still can see that the great interest in this kind of community for their sons of daughter or even for themselves. So anyhow, this is what we do. And if you have questions, let's go back. Any questions for our survey so far?
Does anyone have any questions? You can wave at the screen too.
So Ginger, this is Diana.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first saw this presentation from you, some of the responses surprised me. One of the things that I was really glad to see that was included in this was asking the questions from a parent's point of view and from the individual's point of view. I think that's a very important distinction that so often does not get made. It's always the parents who are asked. And so some of those answers, were surprising when you look at from each perspective. And I'm so happy that you were able to get this. And remind me, I forget, what was the response rate on the survey when you did it? I know it was really high.
The survey, we received 354 So total of 354 people filled out a survey. And also we have done 24 focus group in 9 different languages that include 189 people who came to the focus group to share their perspectives. So total, the outcome is from 543 people.
Yeah, that's a
It's-
great
yeah.
response.
And we did it for almost 9 months to fully understand people's needs, because too often, people of color who speak different languages were not giving opportunity to provide their feedback, particularly for their housing needs or their service needs. And for us, what we want to do is, if we want to create a living community environment for people, the voices should be coming from their what we design should come from their voices. And so far, that's what we have been, striving to do in partnership with Mercy Housing. We are, developing this multicultural village, and we hope that we will get a site pretty soon. And once we have the site control, then we will start to build this place. And based on, the people's feedback, we want to make sure that the housing units only up to 20% of the total community are for people with IDD, or people with IDD and their family together, or individuals who want to live with their caregiver or something. So it's a varieties of housing units, but only up to 20% of the total housing units will be for IDD population, which include parents, families, individuals, that kind of, combination. Yeah.
Yes. And we watched your video last month at one of our advocacy days. And so that's posted on our website. I put that in the chat, and we'll repost your, that video with this presentation from you later today on the website.
Yeah.
It looks like in the chat, Tammy is asking, was the data across the entire state of Washington?
No, we live in King County and we serve in King County mostly. And so majority of people we serve are in King County. So unfortunately, it is a King County, geographically limited. If we have other opportunities and also funding available, definitely we will be very interested to do a larger scales survey and also focus group to understand people's needs. I think it just often it takes too much time, and a lot of people don't do that. So our BIPOC community's voices were not heard. That was the case. And so we are grateful for the support from the Cooney Foundation, and our council member, Dave Abdegrove, knows how important our DD populations are to support this project. And we hope that through this development, this kind of community housing development, give the people with disabilities more opportunities to have easy access to services. For example, this multicultural village we plan to build is not just only housing. We will have a community center to provide youth programming, adult programming, senior caregiver program, and of course there would be like fitness room, like you see that people were talking about. They want to have fitness room, and the computer lab, have a kitchen, commercial kitchen that we can help people to learn how to prep meals, or for the event we can cater the food, or younger children. That will be inclusive early childhood program that we are working with Dr. Eileen Swartz from University of Washington, and many of you here probably know her project at EEU, right? It's a very good inclusive quality early childhood program. So really thinking about lifespan early on, from the early learning program to the youth program, to have after school opportunities for them to participate in varieties of, recreations or learning opportunities. And not only that, later on when we become adults, like a Highline College is right next to it, then that would be a great access to education for adults with disabilities. And for those who want to get into employment in the community center, then we can provide different programming for training, right? And because without space that is dedicated for people with disabilities, too often our people are not able to create a quality program because you just don't have the space to run those programs. And that's very important. And particularly, I believe that in this kind of community, because it's inclusive, intentionally, we build it to include people with disabilities. So all the design will be, reflect the beauty of people with disabilities throughout the building design, and also make it accessible based on the universal design principle to create those rooms for individuals who have IDDs. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Ginger. There's a few more, some positive feedback in the chat I want to read off. It looks like Justin said, yes, I agree. I know people who worry about the safety of our community, and I like the data. It's very helpful to have others see what we see as people with IDD. And then Sean said, Ginger, I think this multicultural village is a very intriguing idea. I've always thought if you design a community that gives people the ability to have some independence, like a room or an apartment, but have services nearby, would be a good option, similar to a 55+ community, as long as the costs are good.
Yeah,
Taylor, I
and-
see your hand is up.
Yeah. So
Ginger,
I'm sorry, I forgot to mention this. What we are trying to
Yeah.
build is affordable rental apartment. It's designed for like a 30%, up to 60% AMI. So there is a great opportunities for low income folks to live there. Yeah.
Ginger, when I
That's
saw
awesome.
first saw your vision, like I remember seeing this a year ago, but then when I saw you present in Olympia back when I was in a hearing, I just seeing the video and that vision just gave me some hope. Like it just gave me some hope to feel that so many families are going to be supported and loved and be at peace and not have to worry. It'd be nice just for once not to have to worry about that finances and where how you're gonna afford your next bill and all that. So to bring those communities together and to finally have that I'm really, not trying to be religious or anything but I'm praying for that. I've been praying for that, and I'm very hopeful for that, and I just love what you're doing, and I hope to get to know you more in the future, because I just am in awe of what you're doing. So
Well, thank you so much, Taylor. And I'm more than happy to talk with you as well. And I think it's besides prayer, I do that too, is that we can also take actions, right now, because we actually submit our budget, request to the House and Senate, if in the capital budget project. If you are willing to support these efforts and let me know, then I can provide you with additional information and send it out to them. Just say, hey, the Open Doors Multicultural Village project is one of the options for our community. Please support the housing for our community, because for this project we can actually create a 40 units. Mercy Housing is planning to build like 200 units. So there will be up to like 40 units in 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedroom alike for our people. And we intend on making sure that all these units will be designed before it got built, making sure that maybe the sound system, acoustic system, or the ground floor, or even the bathroom designed, and the door making bigger, or the counter make it lower, all this kind of design, we will, that's what our agreement is. They will work with us together to design those, units. And we also have been talking to DDA, trying to figure out what are the funding available in order for us to pay those additional design, making sure it's suitable for people to live there. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your time today, Ginger. This was great information. We've gotten a lot of kudos. Thank you for bringing hope, like Taylor said. Thank you so much for being here today. And we are going to move on to our next speakers here. We have Joanne and Dan O'Neill, who are some of our seasoned, I like that word, our seasoned parent advocates. They're going to share some of their wisdom with us today. Thank you for being here, Joanne and Dan. I was trying to rename you.
Thank you, and hi, everyone. I see Margaret Lee is on here, and we used to work together to plan the King County Legislative Forum, and we did a lot of talking about who would represent the senior family. So Margaret Lee, right now I'm getting to do that. I've come to that age. So I am 77 years old, and my husband.
I had to correct her last night. She said, "Hey, 80, you're 82." And I said, "No, I'm 81, for God's sakes. Let's be careful here." I'm going to let Joanne do most of the speaking here because I had some significant dental surgery 5 days ago. And besides that, she's much more knowledgeable than I am. So.
You all heard that. I hope that was recorded.
Yeah, I hope everybody knows that he's an MD too.
So sometimes that doesn't even help, being a nurse and being a doctor, because the concerns, gee, I was so happy to listen to everyone so far today, because some of the things that Dan and I were talking about as being an aging parent are expressed in the what others have said today. What Donna said, and it's just Ginger's ideas. Safety is so critical as we age and also worry about our kids. And Tammy mentioned wanting to connect with people who had already gone through some of these issues that they were looking at. And I think that's another thing that parents, aging parents, or any parent would like to connect with. I can remember when our son, who is our oldest, was born, and as we were noticing the areas that he was not meeting his primary or his skill level at this time that it's indicated. And at that point, I had this fantasy of wanting to meet some other parent who had a child with the same kind of disability, that was much older, and that they lived in the same kind of house, that they drove the same kind of car. I was trying to put myself in the future at that point and see what was going to happen. And what has happened is that we learn from everyone every day. One thing I wanted to mention is that even though Dan and I are aging at this point, we are in good health. But we do realize that, we're all one step away from needing more assistance. Our kids are, and thank you for saying our adult children. Brendan had turned 50 in January. That was kind of surprising to both Dan and I. Our youngest daughter is now 45. We also have a daughter who is sort of in the middle, and she lives in Florida. So while she loves her siblings and cares about them, we are not depending on her to help provide some of the supports as we age and are unable to do those things. One of the things that we look towards is that we don't want our kids to lose where they live and the supports they have on the same day that we are unable to provide those kinds of things. So let me tell you just a little bit about our kids, because they both receive services from DDA, but they're very different. And so it makes me sometimes makes both Dan and I have to jump back and forth into which person are we talking about, what are their particular needs. So our son, Brendan, has basically cerebral palsy. He has a congenital malformation, and so that's causing some of the issues. And his needs, he is basically nonverbal, but he says, hi, how are you? And he'll say, mom and dad. But if he were coming home on access and they pulled up in front of our house and the driver asked him, is this your home? He would not answer them. Sometimes I wonder if he's able to do that and just avoid being a stinker, and he doesn't, but he is not able to have that kind of conversation. Although you don't have to know him for very long to have him be able to communicate with you in a way that you understand what he's looking at. He still lives with us. He works, although his work schedule was diminished. Certainly he works at the hospital at Valley Medical Center, but of course, during the time of COVID's beginning, he was not working. And as COVID restrictions in a hospital or medical setting changed, he was able to go back to work, but he delivers mail within the hospital setting. And they figured out how to do that delivery 2 days a week instead of the 5 days a week that he was doing before. So in conjunction with his employment support folks, we continue to look for what kinds of other work he could do to fill in his days there. He really, really loves his job. And although it doesn't mean as much to him that he gets a paycheck, he likes being there. He understands that he is doing a service, a job within the hospital, and he's getting paid. He needs all kinds of it, my nursing background falls back on the ADLs, the activities of daily living. So help with dressing and getting his meals, and we are with him when he is eating, and other personal care kinds of things that he needs help with. So he's a real 24/7 kind of kid, kind of adult kid. So our daughter, on the other hand, she has been home a lot more than she ever was prior to COVID, but she moved into an apartment. We were sitting there trying to figure out how long ago that first entry was. And that was 22 years ago, and she lives in a low income apartment. We live in Bellevue, and the apartment there is in Redmond, so it is handy, but it's not too close. She spends time with us, certainly more than she did. We're kind of having her moved back into that apartment a little more. She kind of likes it at home. They say that the eagles pull the feathers from the nest to get their babies to fly, and so we're busy pulling feathers right now. She has had roommates with varying success. Her first roommate was fabulous. They had gone to school together, and if we could replicate that right now, I'd do it in a heartbeat. But for the last, we also had a uncomfortable, difficult situation with a roommate that resolved itself. So for the last 18 years she has been living alone at her apartment. And she says to me, one of the reasons she likes it at home is that she gets lonely there. She definitely has issues around anxiety and depression and that sort of thing. So as we're looking into the future for her, planning for the needs of our son and planning for the needs of our daughter are really somewhat different. Brendan doesn't ever seem to get depressed. He's just a upbeat kind of guy. I hate it to hear, when they talk about people with IDD, they're always happy. Well, they're not always happy, but Brendan has a good sense of humor and good humor, so that and anxiety doesn't play a big role in his life. So really wanting a solution for our kids when we're no longer able to provide the support we do now. Both Dan and I are paid providers through Medicaid personal care. We do have help from another person. What we're looking for is we have kind of a general idea of our plan for what is going to support them as we become less able to support them. But one of the Diana had mentioned to look at the barriers, and nuclear family isn't. We don't have that. Personally, we don't have that kind of setting for our kids where we have family members available to us. So we have to look outside of the family. And I think that's something that so many of the families who are aging are looking at that. Excuse me.
Hey, Joanne, thank you for sharing all this. We have to move on to our next speaker, but I just wanted to interject real quick and say I'm so grateful for you and your husband to show up and share your lived experience. I know even though I'm living on my own, I have a disability as well. I know my mom worried about what would happen if she couldn't support me anymore. So thank you for just sharing that. And I feel like that was a crucial piece of addressing that and those experiences, especially for family and senior support. So thank you so much. And I appreciate you being here.
Could I just say that I think it's important for the families to connect with their ARCs, with their other organizations within their counties, and not be isolated. And if that happens, they're going to do much better.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joanne and Dan. So we're going to bring on our next speaker, Lonnie from DDA. And if you're here, Lonnie, spotlight's on you.
Hi, everyone. I just want to make sure that folks can hear me. I think I'm not on mute. Great. So my name is Lonnie Kesey, and I work for the Developmental Disabilities Administration. I am a unit manager at the Developmental Disabilities Administration's headquarters. And in my unit, there's a few different programs. One of them is PASSAR, which stands for Pre-Admission Screening and Resident Review. And then also the programs that affect the Developmental Disabilities Administration's front door. So in my unit is the program manager for our intake and eligibility, and also for our no paid services. And I'm here right now to talk about our no paid services. So just real quick, because I'm not sure how many people here know what that means, no paid services. What that means is that when clients become DDA eligible, they are offered services right then and there at eligibility. And if they, for some reason, can't get services or don't have a need for services, then they go on what we have been calling for years the no paid services caseload. So it's people who are DDA enrolled but are not receiving any services. So some really exciting things have happened. There are years ago, back prior to 2010, 2011, we used to have case managers that people on the no paid services caseload could reach out to in order to make service requests, or if they need some sort of support with navigating resources. They used to have case managers. And then some of you might remember this, but in 2010, 2011, there was the recession that occurred, and those positions were eliminated. So since then, we have not had any case managers for people who are DDA enrolled but not receiving services. So essentially, since there was nobody to process those requests, not a person that clients can build a relationship or call when they have a need for something, it was replaced with a phone number that people could call and leave a message if they want a service request. Well, over the years, we know that this just hasn't worked, right? So the exciting thing, 2019, 2020, there was legislation that was passed that asked us to, well, that directed DDA to hire 2 staff who would do some outreach with these folks. So we had some staff that were calling as many people as they can to get some information about what are your service needs. And then we were directed to develop a report to submit to legislators. Well, some great things happened from that because there was legislation passed that now we get to put case managers back in place. So the people on the no paid services caseload will have a case manager to reach out to develop a relationship with, to help them navigate the community and to help them get set up with services that they are needed. So that's kind of the history behind this. This is so we're really, I'm sorry, just I don't know, is there somebody who's talking or has a question?
No, it was just somebody in the background that took care of it. Thank you.
Perfect, great. And I'm just right now, I'm just pulling up my notes just to make sure I'm hitting the right things. So one thing, you know, this is just an interesting fact. In 2010, you know, right when we lost all those case managers, we had about, at the time, we had about 18,000 people that were on the no paid services caseload. And over the years, because we were able to offer things like the individual and family services waiver and some other services, today we have right around, it varies day to day, but it's right about 12,000 people that are DDA enrolled, but they're not receiving any services. So right now, our regional management throughout the state, they are furiously and busily hiring staff, case managers, so that we can start assigning case managers to these clients. They will have a 300-to-1 caseload ratio, and the requirement is that these case managers will make contact with each of these clients on an annual basis. And they're going to talk about, okay, what are the needs and what services can help with those needs. And so we have some technical issues that we are trying to work out, and I suspect that they will be worked out fairly soon, since this large pool of case management hasn't been, you know, they're new to us essentially and new to our staff. We're working to iron out some kinks, but but people will begin receiving letters from their newly assigned case manager starting the spring and throughout 2023. So we are going to be phasing this in throughout the state. Some areas are having a harder time hiring case managers than other areas. So as the regions get fully staffed, we'll start seeing those letters. Clients will start getting contacted by a case manager and start having some discussions about service needs and just some supports that they can offer through that they could receive through their case manager. So that is an update as to what is occurring. I'm just wondering if there are any questions regarding that. You know, something else that's going to happen is we're going to continue doing our outreach in addition to this. We do have the staff that are identified to that. So people will probably start receiving fairly soon, within the next couple of months, start receiving a call from an outreach worker. And the goal of that is to collect data, because we do want to report accurate information to legislators. Legislators have directed us to develop an annual report to them regarding the no paid services caseload. And Diana, I see your hands up.
Yes, thank you, Lonnie, for being here.
You bet.
I'm wondering, with these new case managers, are they being trained about the community services they could offer to people on the no paid services, like going to parent, or, you know, a local chapter of the ARC or the Autism Society, whatever, making sure they have those contacts to provide to people. And then the second part of that, I believe at this time, we still have openings on the waivers. So are they being offered spots on the waivers?
Thank you. Those are excellent questions. And yes, absolutely. That is my staff is furiously right now working on curriculum, working on training. We think that that is a very important component. And we really want to focus on the training on really how to have conversations with clients regarding what their needs are and how to help them determine what services to utilize and getting those in place. And that's includes the community resources that are out there. You know, the program manager, Phoenix is the program manager, is working with the regional folks to start, well, and they've been doing this for a while. As soon as we heard that we're working on this, they are collecting what those local resources are in each individual areas throughout the state. And of course, it varies widely, right? Because there's folks that are very rural, Eastern Washington, and then there's folks that are, you know, in very urban areas too, that might have more resources. So yes, training is a large component of this work. And then the second question was about the waiver spots. Absolutely. They're going to be talking about waivers quite a bit, all the different services. And like I said, part of the training is going to be, how do we talk about those services to help people think about how those services can meet their needs, maybe in ways that we didn't think about before. I am really hoping that we see a large service utilization jump as we progress through this. I know that through our outreach experience and just my experience with DDA, I've been with DDA since 2006. Sometimes people may hear somebody talk in very system-y language, and that's what we're trying to get away from, is let's plain talk our services as much as possible and help people think about the way to use them that we haven't thought of before. Especially, you know, those community services, getting people out there. Yeah, absolutely.
There's one more question there's one question I see in the chat from Chris Brandt, Lonnie, and it says, thank you for the update. Will these new staff, which are really hard to find in the workforce environment, currently result in more people getting services? He knows that we heard that there are many waiver openings, open all waivers. I think Diana asked a very similar question. So
yeah, I think you answered that, Lonnie, when you answered the second half of Diana's question. And it's very good to hear that there is extensive focus being placed on training and for case managers to be able to really understand the opportunities that are out there, because every day, every advocacy day, and every day that isn't an advocacy day, we're hearing lots about need. And when there's waiver openings, we begin to wonder what are the root causes of that. And I think, you know, a significant piece of that is the capacity, both at the state level and then out in the provider community, whether it's residential or employment and community inclusion that at work provides, is the lack of staff to be able to serve the people that need us. So I'm glad to hear that the no pay caseload is getting attention. 300 to 1, I think, is a very large caseload, and we tend to do that a lot in our state. And maybe we need to address that in a future advocacy focus. Because as I hear you talking about that, I think about things like person-centered planning and the conversation we had with Darla earlier from Peace, talking about people's dreams and person-centered approaches. That it's really hard to do a person-centered plan with someone when you're trying to talk to 300 people in a year. That's like one a day and taking no time off.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
that's like really quick phone calls, I would think.
Well, we don't want it to be really quick. We want them to be meaningful discussions, and that, that's going to be part of the training. We don't want to miss anybody. We are still doing some work, and it was quite a task, but legislators tasked us with trying to figure out where everyone is, and we still have not figured that out because, like I said, we haven't had anyone in place for over a decade monitoring these. So we're doing a lot of work there. The other training component I wanted to say is this is bigger than these case managers working with clients, right? We're looking at enhancing our front door experience. People, and also in my unit, I mentioned that there is intake and eligibility. And I feel, and so a lot of this training is going to not only be for these case managers, but it is also going to be for the front door workers, our intake and eligibility workers, so that when people initially are eligible, they have someone right away that could talk about services in a very plain way and help people start thinking about them. And then of course, when they get transferred over to the no paid services case manager, they could definitely go into a lot more depth, but we are really trying to do some cross training with those two teams. And really it's a larger front door team, and we want everyone to have that warm experience coming through our door. And I know we have work to do, but we are excited to do that work. I am so excited that these programs are in my unit.
That's very good to hear as well. And I see that Diana put into the chat, and I would emphasize that as well, that training includes self-advocates, so that you're, having included in that case manager training, part of your curriculum, self-advocates that have received the services or haven't, and for whom the services have been successful or have not. So you can really get down to the nitty-gritty. And the same with parent advocates, some of whom have been doing this for a very long time, that you see here today. So I would second that with Diana.
And yes, I absolutely agree. I have the program manager, Phoenix, that I mentioned earlier. And I know that Phoenix wouldn't mind me saying this, but Phoenix is a parent of somebody, with a disability, and is very passionate about this. And the stakeholdering is on, it's on the top of his mind. So that will occur. And I agree, it's not only important, it's just, if we want to be successful, then we have to do this. And I know that with my experience, we don't include the stakeholders, we're not successful. So it absolutely will occur that way. I appreciate that comment.
And Lonnie, I think we all, there's some in the chat is being reiterated too, but I also appreciate that the fact DDA is going to start to use more plain language. I really appreciate that. And I hope Social Security gets on board with that next. That's all I can say, but I really appreciate that you guys are working on that. And I think Chris Brandt had her hand up, and I think that was pretty much it after that. And then I think afterwards we're going to have Diana and Jessica wrap up with bills and hearings and Advocacy Day surveys. So
I'm actually done, Taylor, except I
okay.
just will say thank you to everyone who spoke today. It was very enlightening. Good to see you again, Ginger, and other folks, Darla folks,
Right.
Joanne.
All right, thank you. All right, we're gonna have Diana wrap and Jessica wrap things up.
Oops. Okay, I have to find me. Okay, wow, this has been a great conversation today. I really appreciate all the people who volunteer to come forward and tell their stories. It's just so important that we hear those things and hear the different perspectives, whether it's the self-advocate or the parent or the multicultural community. All of these stories need to be heard so that we make sure we don't miss people when we're advocating for services for people. We want those services to meet all needs, because you're not going to find two people with exactly the same need. It's so important that our services are individualized. So very quickly, I'm going to go through the bills of interest. We passed the cutoff for bills to get through their house of origin, where they started at. So House bills had to make it past the House floor, and Senate bills had to make it through the Senate floor. And so now they have to go through the whole process again on the other side. So a lot of bills died at that point. They didn't make it. And these are the ones that we still have left. So we've got another deadline coming up when they have to make it out of their policy committee on the other side. And you'll see that some of these are in a policy committee like House Housing, or some have already passed the policy committee and are in the fiscal committee like Ways and Means or Appropriations. So this is posted on our website, and we update it every week. If you go to our website at arcwa.com, and there's a tab that says Advocacy, and you can hover over it. And this is under the bill tracker page. So you'll find budgets are coming out next week. We're up to that time already. So the Senate will release their budget on Thursday and have a hearing on Friday next week. So be prepared so that you can come and tell the legislature, tell the senators first, what things are important to keep in that budget. And if there are things that are missing, you want to tell them about those too. So you can find all these bills. There's a column here that tells you what their status is. Some are going to have public hearings still. Some are being exec, which means they're passing out of that committee. And so we try and keep this updated on our web page too, so that you can go find a bill. If you want to know more about it, you click on the bill number and it will take you to the legislative page about that bill. And then down below, you'll see that we're working on budget provisos as well. This is something that some of the bills didn't make it through. So instead, they can be considered necessary to implement the budget, NTIB. And one of the big ones we're really working on is the affordable housing. The House Bill 1628 is going to come up in the Finance Committee to be passed on out of that committee, exec'd out. So we're really working to try and let the House Finance Committee know how important this is. This excise tax would give people with developmental disabilities about $40 million a biennium to spend on housing, which is a huge need. If you don't have a place to live, you have nothing. It's like Ginger was talking about with her multicultural. So I'm going to stop sharing. If you have questions about bills or budgets, feel free to contact me and we can talk more. So I will turn it over to Jessica now.
Thank you, Diana.
After this briefing, you have many options to advocate with your legislators. You can schedule a Zoom meeting with your legislators, email today's information to them. You can also email your legislators about bills that are important to you and to set up appointments with them. First, you can email your legislators about bills that are important to you and to set up appointments with them. You can also watch legislative action on TVW at www.tvw.org. You can sign in to testify at future hearings. You can sign in pro, con, or other or submit written testimony on a bill. Let me show you how it works. Go to www.leg.wa.gov and scroll down to let your voice be heard. Click on participating in the process, then click on testifying in a virtual hearing. Choose House or Senate, depending on which committee you want to testify at. We'll look at a Senate bill today. Select the Senate button then for this morning. Let's look at the Senate Committee on Early Learning and K-12 Education. Choose the date and time of the hearing. The hearing is March 16, 2023, 1:30 p.m. Then click the circle for HB 1238. Then select the type of testimony you want to give. You can do live testimony virtually via Zoom, or you can just sign in with your position on the bill. If you want to, you can submit written testimony. Today we will sign in to testify. Choose your position on the bill, pro, con, or other. Fill out the form with your name, email, full address, and phone number. If your name is hard to pronounce, you can sound it out on the pronunciation box. If your name is easy to pronounce, don't worry about filling out that box. Usually you will be testifying as an individual, but if you are part of a panel, you would enter your name and info as a new panelist, then add each person's info who will be on the panel after that. Finally, select I am not a robot. After you submit the registration form, an email will be sent to you with Zoom link information. Once you get the email, it has links to add it to your Outlook, Google, or Yahoo calendar. Advocacy Day is a project of the ARC of Washington State and funded by the Washington State Developmental Disabilities Council. Be sure to join us for future Advocacy Days. Register for each Advocacy Day on our website at www.arcwa.org/advocacy-ds. We want to make sure you are satisfied with Advocacy Days, so be sure to fill out our feedback form. Your feedback helps us to continue improving and helping your voice to be heard. Let's walk through it together. Start at arcwa.org/advocacy days, scroll down to the 3 smiley faces that say your feedback matters, and then select click here. The link to the feedback form in Spanish is right below the link to the English version. Start by putting in your email address. Next, you select the date and topic of the Advocacy Day you're giving input for. You can then let us know if this is your first Advocacy Day or not. Next, you can answer 4 short questions by just picking the smiley faces that answer how you feel about the virtual Advocacy Day. Then you submit the form, just as simple as that. Your input helps the ARC to know what you like, what you don't like, what is helpful, and what is not helpful. You can learn about these and more ideas to get involved on our website at www.arcwa.org and click on Advocacy Days. You can also contact us at sale@arcwa.org or Diana@arcwa.org if you need help. Are there any questions?
I don't have any.
All right. With that being said, I think we will adjourn. Anyways,
Yes. And in the chat, I do see important, Diana put contact members of the House Finance Committee. That's how we get these items passed. So please do that. That can be our advocacy for today. Make sure you
yes,
contact them and say, yes, we need 1628 in our budget. We need that funding for our families and our people who experience disabilities.
absolutely. And yeah, make sure just to reach out to your legislators and keep pushing. We're not out of the woods yet. So keep trucking along. So so I hope everybody has a good afternoon, and we will see you next week.